everyone, my name is Sydney and welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry that my room is disgusting. I am currently creating donation piles for all my clothes, getting rid of old makeup, but I've been waiting to make this video for a long time and I am ready. I am so excited. This is my list of top 10 books of the decade. I think I have a few honorable mentions. I'd also like to point out that I'm very disappointed that I left my ring light at college and that I have to film in front of a window, which means here and here, I feel like a flight attendant. I reorganized all my bookshelves and they look so pretty, but the light is coming from here. So it's top 10, but I have 3 honorable mentions. So technically it's 13. I'll give a brief explanation about why it's my favorite. Sometimes it's not even the story. Sometimes it's the experience I had reading it, like where I was, I don't know. You'll see what I mean. Coming in at number 13, it's Hotel Ruby by Suzanne Young. I really hope I got the author right. I haven't read this book in a hot minute, but with me not being a big fan of horror, it was a good go-between. I had loved Suzanne Young's The Program series. I was hooked on it in like 2013, 2014, something like that. I think it was one of the first books I had read with such a dark plot twist. That's all I'm gonna say. Coming in at number 12 is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I read this before I saw the movie, because that's the order you're supposed to do it in. All I knew about the book was that it was sad. I didn't expect it to be so sad. Ouch, my heart is still broken. Apart from one other book, I don't think I've ever been so sad reading it contemporary. Ooh, I'm still in pain. All right, coming in at number 11 is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yes, there are some classics that made the list. I was fortunate enough to have the best high school English teachers ever, and my junior teacher really bought me into The Great Gatsby. There's something about the 20s that really excites me, just the livelihood and the parties and the crime. It's just set up for a really good drama. And so this was just such a fun read. Junior year was hell, and this book made it better. I really enjoyed it. Okay, top 10 everyone, top 10. Number 10 is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. The only reason Fangirl is so low on the list is because I'm not a big contemporary person. I don't click well with the regular world. There's something about contemporary that I've never really just like sat well with. There's not enough adventure for me, I guess. I think that's why I'm such a big fantasy sci-fi nerd. But I loved Fangirl. I read it at a time when I needed it most. It was so cute and so charming, and the characters were relatable, and the plot was just so precious, but it had its moments of grit and sadness and reality. It was just an overall good book. I'd read it again in a heartbeat. Number 9, everyone. Number 9 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I had to research the living tar out of this book for a senior paper. I have a video on it. It's like capstone part 2 or something. But along the way, in just dissecting the mess out of it, just covering the whole book in annotations, it was so good. I loved that it was a frame story. And if you don't know what a frame story is, that means that it's a story, but the story is about these characters telling a story. I wasn't a big sci-fi person in the beginning of the decade, and then I think this helped like cement it, also because it was just a really good classic. I really enjoyed it. I really had a heart for the monster. Again, I'm one of those people that if there's a chance to side with the villain, I'm probably gonna take it. So this was one where, you know, the monster wasn't given a name, so you couldn't be attached to it, but I was attached, and I did give it a name. I also did 2 Frankenstein reviews, if you really want to check those out. Number 8, I haven't read in a while, and I almost totally forgot about it until I remembered how much fun I had reading it, and that is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I'll tell you what, the fact that it was centered around like a governmental system like the gladiators and Rome, I really dug that. It was interesting. When I picked it up, I figured it was just gonna be another YA in a fantasy universe book. But this book had like historical sprinklings in it, and I thought it was really good. The characters were so cool. But once you got towards like the middle end of the book, this story went racing. There weren't like too many things that you had to keep up with plot-wise, but there was enough to keep your mind like turning so that when you got to the end, you're like, oh, that's why she dropped that. Go pick it up. It was so good. I remember reading this in my grandma's guest bedroom when I spent the night at her house. And I think I was staying there like over a weekend. I think my parents were gone. That's how young I was. 15, something like that. I couldn't drive. And I was reading it in the guest bedroom. And I remember staying up till like 4 a.m. reading this book. And it was just so good. What are we on? Number 7? I want to make sure, I'm definitely switching those. I made an adjustment to my list. I changed a few things. Number 7. Number 7 is 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I loved it. It was the first real dark fantasy I had read, but I loved that it was centered around heist and criminals. It was fantastic. I loved that there were not like 3 main characters above these other 3, and it's all 6 of them were the primary character. I loved what each character brought to the table, and the story was fantastic, but the fact that the story was mostly built around character development, and yet all this crazy stuff was going on. Am I on number 6? Yeah. Keep coming back. Ooh. Number 6 is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Now, I get it. It's mainstream. Please don't hate me. But the thing that made this book reach the list was definitely how attached I got to it. I became hardcore obsessed with these characters. This book had so much joy and yet so much sadness that it just resonated with me so deeply. I read this at an age where I felt like I didn't want to do anything anymore, that my life wasn't going anywhere. I just felt like in a dump. So the fact that it started off with a little bit of joy and then just totally crushed my heart was like kind of perfect, honestly. I grew so fond of this book that I even like used like the language and memorable quotes in my daily life when I would talk to the people that I loved. I loved that book. And when the movie came out, it just cemented my love for the book all the more. It was perfectly done, book and movie, and I think that book got me through my early teenage years. So John Green, thank you.
We will now take a brief intermission to see Sydney make a fool of herself because she cannot count.
Now, what? Uh-oh. No, that's right. Oh shoot. Y'all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Fart. I'm going to have 2 number 1s then. Oh, okay. Number 5, I feel like should be higher, but I'm just gonna keep it at 5. Number 5 is The One by Kiera Cass. Normally, people usually put the first book as their favorite, or the second. A lot of second books are doing really well these days, although some series, the second book was really flat. However, the final book, like, we all knew what was coming. We all knew what was coming. It was on the cover. This was the first series that I just adored. And yes, the characters were frustrating, America specifically, but I just waited and waited and waited for them to be together. I waited so long. You know, last night I was thinking about my list. I'm like, this is not real, right? This is not really my list. How can this be so far up? And I started flipping through the pages and I got so emotional. I was crying because I could feel my 13-year-old self rereading this, but also like my 19-year-old self was like, dang, I cry. 4, I'm on number 4. This decade was hallmarked by my love for Sarah J. Maas. So number 4 is Queen of Shadows. I remember I picked up the Throne of Glass series per a friend's request. But funny enough, this friend only read until the second book and then stopped because she didn't like where the story arc was going. I read 1 and 2, saw the shift, and decided why not read the third one. The third one was great. I think reading Air of Fire was the best like physical reading experience, but plot-wise and character development-wise, I have to go with Queen of Shadows because as I was reading all these books, Air of Fire was waiting to come out. And so Queen of Shadows was the last book I got before I had to wait for like 3 months. I just remember being so wound up. What am I on, 3? Ooh, we're getting down to it. I kind of think I need to switch my 3 and 2. So I'm going to put as number 3, Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Okay, I know that this is a typical YA and it's very standard tropes, all that fun stuff. However, what really defined this story for me was Maven galore. If you haven't read Red Queen, you're in the wrong, but also go to this time so I don't spoil you so bad. The reason I love this book so much is because of the turn Maven took. I did not see it coming, first of all, so she wrote it well enough to where no one would figure it out. The way that he turned was so sudden and just, it was so perfect. He literally played her so hard. He played everyone, and I was so impressed. I immediately liked Maven. From the start, I knew that he was going to be a valuable character because you've always got to worry about the quiet ones. You always have to worry about the quiet ones, whether it's because they're going to rise up in a good way or they're going to totally wreck everything like Maven did. You know, Alara, his mom, was like the real big baddie here, but really, once he turned, I knew that he was going to become tip-top villain, and I was so excited to see it happen. And just everything with the ball of bones, you know, just infiltrating the Scarlet Guard, I loved it. I love Maven. I really love Maven. I'm depressed he died. Okay, number 2. Technically, I'm putting 3 books as number 2, but it's all in the same series, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Here's the deal. I just got finished reading Queen of Nothing, and I think that that was such a beautiful series. I think it closed perfectly. I love how there was a clear divide between the mortal world and fairy. It was so cool for her to just like drop in like mac and cheese, Target, ordering pizza. I loved that. I thought it was so nice because she's kind of saying like, yeah, it could happen. It could happen. It could be in the real world. And I loved that the thing about the way she did fairy was that there were literal fae creatures. Like it wasn't handsome men with wings. No, it was like ogres and nymphs and imps and all these other creatures. I don't want to be that person, but Carden, come on, people. I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. I liked that he never gave an inch. All right, everyone, number 1, and because I miscounted my list, there are actually 2 books, but I think they should both be at number 1 for their own different reasons. So I'll bring the drum roll back. Number 1, if you haven't guessed at least one of them, you don't know me, you're a fake fan. Number 1 is A Court of Mist and Fury, and my other number 1 is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. These books are very, very different from each other, but they both highlight things that I just love and adore in a story. For Scythe, it is that there is a huge ethical dilemma and there is a slow burn romance and chaos and allegories. It really makes you think about what you would do if you were in that situation and if something like that could ever happen in the real world. Oh, it was so good, and I'm so excited to read The Toll. I didn't get to read The Toll yet. Nobody spoil me. I loved Thunderhead too, but Scythe propelled Thunderhead into what it is, so I'm going to give it to Scythe. And then A Court of Mist and Fury, my all-time love. I remember reading this. I was dying. In a good way. My world exploded into color and night and stars and oh my god, it was so good. I get so emotional every time I reread a page. I just physically come back to the Night Court. And I also loved the book so much because it is such a dramatic shift from the first book. I also love that it's a retelling, but it's such a loose retelling that you don't even know it's a retelling. It's a retelling of Hades and Persephone from Greek mythology, a story that I'm already obsessed with. But then A Court of Mist and Fury just did it like 10 times over in the scene of fantasy and the fae and how everything unfolded and all the new characters that were introduced. Phenomenal. I listened to 2 songs, just only 2 songs, over and over and over again as I was reading Akamath. And that was This Is What You Came For by Calvin Harris and Rihanna, and Keep Breathing by Ingrid Michaelson. And so anytime there was like action scene or something fun was going on, you know, the first song would be playing. But then when the sentimental moments happen, it was always the Ingrid Michaelson song. Chapter 54, not 55, 54. When the Ingrid Michaelson song was playing, just on loop, I lost it. I lost it. I was a lost cause. I was gone. I was crying heaps. I listen to music in order to go to sleep. And so on my shuffle, that song came and I just sat straight up in my bed and just bawled. I don't think that a book has ever had so much effect on me the way Akamath has. It's just so good. It's probably my favorite book of all time. Anyways, thank you for listening to me jabber on about my favorite reads of the decade. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe if you want to. I haven't said that in a while. Cool. I'm hoping to do a decade in review of just like my actual life, not just my bookish life. So stay in touch for that. I don't know, I've got some pictures loaded up, so if you really want to see me at the age when I was reading some of these books, stick around. Once more, my name is Sydney. I make new videos whenever I can, and until next time, bye!